I love this time of year because I love presents. Who doesn't love presents? Raise your hand if you don't like presents. You don't like presents? Are you hard to buy for, Dan? Is that why? Huh? Are you hard to buy for? My wife accuses me of being hard to buy for. She goes, you already have it, or you don't want it. That's the two categories she has there. So she says she has a hard time with it. But I love gifts. I always look forward to Christmas as a kid. And, I try to stay up late and outlast Santa. I always thought Santa would come and I would miss him. So I would stay up as late as I could. And the funny thing was, he'd always come after I fell asleep. I don't know how that worked, but... And I remember one particular, I can say this because we don't have kids here. One particular Christmas, I sneaked in and saw my dad putting my bike together. And I figured things out. That Dad was helping Santa. So, but I love gifts. I love the idea of gifts. I love the idea that you can take something that you're thinking about someone, that you love someone, and you can give them something that brings them joy. At really little or no cost if you think about it. Now granted, there are some gifts that cost quite a bit. But typically, in most of our relationships, it doesn't cost a whole lot to bring somebody joy, does it? A thoughtful gift, a card or something, or a reminder to let them know that, hey, I love you, I'm thinking about you. It doesn't cost us a whole lot, other than a little bit of time, maybe a little bit of money. And so I have a definition of gift here. It says a gift is a present or an item given to someone without the expectation of payment. That's the important part, is we don't expect them to pay us back. My kids are, they give us gifts during Christmas time, and we'll open our cards or our gift, and they look at us like, okay, now what did you get us? That's not how it works. That's a work in progress. Sometimes, we hear this all the time from the ladies. It's the thought that counts. You guys ever heard that? How many of you guys ever heard it's the thought that counts? How many of you ever bought something that they didn't like? You ever bought your wife something she didn't like? I have. It's not the thought that counts. I've learned a long time ago to give a gift receipt with that gift, just in case she wants to return it. Because usually I'm wrong on my guesses. I guess we have different tastes, but have you ever met someone who knew how to give a great gift? Like they just knew what you needed. They knew what to give you. They knew whether it was to lift your spirits or you needed something tangible that you liked. Right? I think of history's great gifts. One of the ones that came to mind was the Statue of Liberty. I'd like to think that the French loved us so much that they wanted to give us this awesome gift. I think partly was because they hate England, and they were happy that we defeated England, and that was part of it. But they gave us this wonderful statue that they had to ship over in pieces on boats. That's how long has that been around? It's a couple hundred years old, right? That's a big gift. That's what we're known for. One of the things we're known for. That was one of history's greatest gifts. The Taj Mahal. You guys ever seen pictures of the Taj Mahal or actually been there? Right? That was actually a gift. It took 20,000 workers and cost $1 billion to build that. That's a gift right there. What about the Richard Burton diamond? 70 carats. I usually lose count at 2 because that's more than I can afford. But 70, that's a big diamond. Of course, anything from the Apple Store is a great gift. I'm not saying that's what I need. I'm just saying that's a great gift. What about someone who doesn't know the meaning of a good gift? How many of you ever got a rotten gift? Let's be honest. All of us have gotten a gift we didn't really want, we didn't really like. I always laugh because when my kids were little, it seemed that all the gifts were these obnoxious little toys with batteries that they would give them. And yeah, the kids like them, but the parents hate them. You're walking through in the middle of the night and you step on one, it feels like you're stepping on like Constantine wire. You know what I'm talking about? The one you're like, and you're running around in the dark doing this. Or you step on it and it starts to beep and starts to make noise and it scares you half to death. For those of you who've had little ones in the house. One of my favorite ones, worst gifts, is the fruitcake. The fruitcake. It doesn't taste like cake, and I don't think it has fruit in it. I think the fruit is more like a gummy bear. I don't know what it is they put in there, but people, and if you bring fruitcakes, I'm sorry, but people would bring fruitcakes, and I remember this going to my grandma's Christmas party she'd have every year where all of my aunties and uncles and all the cousins would come together. There'd always be a fruitcake, and I don't think anybody ever actually acknowledged they're the one that brought it. Like they were ashamed. But I remember hearing the first time, hey, it's a fruitcake. And I was thinking, cake and fruit, great. I tasted it and I'm like, this doesn't have either. There's no cake in this. Where's the icing? Where's the chocolate? There's no fruit in this. It tastes like gummy bears. Anybody ever got any ugly clothes for Christmas? Like, come on, Grandma Tutu never bought no ugly clothes. It's funny how Grandma thinks what you should wear versus what, even at 7 years old, I knew I don't need to be wearing that sweater. I don't need to be wearing those socks. I might get beat up for wearing those. My favorite, and this is more recent, historically bad gifts. I call it the down payment. That's when someone gives you a gift card to a store, and let's say they give you a gift card of $50, but the cheapest thing in that store is $100. Right? I call it the bill. Because I go shopping, I'm going to spend money. That's not really a gift. That's half a gift. I remember years ago I got a gift card. I wanted a Christmas party at work. And the problem is, at the time, my girlfriend at the time also worked in the same place. So she was there at the Christmas party. So I couldn't hide the fact that I wanted Tiffany's gift card. But the problem is that Tiffany's gift card was only $300. What am I getting at Tiffany's for $300? As soon as I realized I won, I thought, now I'm in for at least 3 times that. And I went up to my boss afterwards. I said, really? I said, did you have to do that to me? But I want to talk a little bit today. You know, that's kind of funny about the gifts and stuff. But I want to talk today about what does the Bible say about gifts? If you would turn with me to Matthew chapter 7. Matthew chapter 7. Starting with verse 7. I find it funny the whole Christmas thing, the way that we've made it. You know, we talk about Santa Claus, but what's the thing with Santa Claus? What happens? What do we tell kids with Santa Claus? In order for you to get a good gift, what do you have to do? You got to be good, right? Right? Doesn't the song say that? He knows if you're naughty or nice. If you've been naughty, you don't get anything. If you've been good, you get something good. Yeah, be good for goodness sake, right? Santa Claus knows. And He's not going to show up to your house if you've been naughty all year. Which, by all accords, most of us are naughty, right? But that's how the world thinks. The world thinks about gifts is that you earn it. It's a works-based thing, right? So in other words, you don't get a good gift if you've been naughty. You don't get a good gift if you've done something bad during the year. You only get a good gift if you've been good. Is that how God works? Thankfully, no. But let's talk about it. Matthew chapter 7, starting with verse 7. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds. And to him who knocks it will be opened. Or what man is there among you who, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will he give him a serpent? If you then, being evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask Him? Now, anywhere in there, is there a merit-based reward? Does God say, I'll only give it to you if you've been righteous? I'll only bless you if you've been good all year. Because if He did that, then there would never be any gifts. Right? He wouldn't be able to bless anybody. You know the verse that says He reigns on the just and the unjust? That God actually blesses the ungodly. This tells us a lot about God's character. And I want to get into this. The first gifts that He gave to mankind. The very first thing that He gave to mankind was a perfect planet. Sinless and sustainable. I have a tangerine tree for the first time in my life in my backyard, and I went yesterday to cut one of the fruit down to see if it was ripe. It was not. I made juice out of it. But I was thinking, every year about the same time, it's going to have fruit. So next year about this time, I can look forward to it having fruit. But the majority of the food that we eat, we have to work for. The majority of the vegetables, we have to plant it. We have to harvest it. We have to tend to it, or somebody does. And we pay for it. When God created our planet, He didn't create it like that. He created it that it was self-sustaining. Adam and Eve, all they had to do was go up to whatever tree they preferred, and there was their food. That was His gift to them. They didn't have to toil over it. They didn't have to work super hard to try to eat. They never had to worry about starving. They never had to worry about drought. They never had to worry about storms or winds or rains or whatever, snow. It was completely sustainable. And so our planet was given to them as a gift. They didn't earn it. He created it before He created us. We were put on it after the fact. So He established that from the get-go. That was one of the gifts that He gave us, was this planet. Of course, what have we done to it? Is it sustainable anymore? No. We've treated it like a toilet. You know? Now you wouldn't, I don't think people who know me would call me an ardent environmentalist. But the fact is that why in the world would God give us the keys to heaven after what we've done to this place? But that was one of the gifts He gave us. And even with the sin, even with all the things we've done to it, to hurt it, it still gives life. We still have trees that fruit. We still have wonderful food. It's still beautiful. That shows you how wonderful a gift it was. Because even when we've ruined it, even when we've treated it like this, it still can be beautiful. It can still give life. The second gift that He gave us was a perfect body. It's hard for me to imagine waking up this morning after having played basketball on Thursday night, and I'm getting out of bed, like this, as I get older, thinking, what would it be like to wake up refreshed? To wake up without a sore back? To wake up without knees that are starting to buckle? My balance perfect? Completely alert, ready for the day. Not having to look forward to breakfast to pick me up. One of the best gifts that God ever gave us was the bodies He gave us. Again, self-sustaining. He originally created our bodies not to die, not to wither, not to get old. Just like the earth, it was meant to be self-sustaining. In other words, it continued on and on and on. There was no end. And of course, what have we done with that? I think all of us have mistreated our bodies to some extent. Some of us found the health message earlier in life. Some of us found it later. I've put a lot of things in my body that I'm not proud of, and I'm paying for it. But even with that, how tough are our bodies? If you think about some of the folks some of the folks I know, even myself, our bodies can sustain quite a beating. Most animals, if you were to put some of the things we put in our bodies and give it to animals, they die. The human body is very unique in that fact that it's very resilient. Very, very resilient. And that was a gift that God gave to us because we never had to worry about it. We got up on our perfect planet. We wake up refreshed and ready for the day. We didn't have to worry about injuries and health issues, and there was never healthcare affordability because we didn't need healthcare. You don't need to afford an ambulance because there is no ambulance. There's no need for an ambulance. That was the gift that He gave us. He also gave us the perfect job. We've talked about this many times before. I think everybody at sometimes feels like they could get a better job. There's times in my work that I feel like sometimes, maybe I could do better. And there's other times that I think, God's blessed me with this. This is wonderful. But Adam and Eve already had the perfect job. They had dominion. There was nobody over them but Him. So there was no boss or no micromanager on top of them. God said, it's yours. If you want to name the animal whatever, you name it whatever. If you want to group the animals this way or that way, that's up to you. God gave them a whole lot of leeway. But that was His gift. If He had given them an earth where He had done everything already and named everything and just said, here, you're here, just watch out for things, but yet He gave them the ability to be able to express themselves because we are created in His image. We're created creatively. That's why we have artists. That's why we like art and literature and all these other things, is because we were created after God's image. He is a creative God. God is not a God of destruction. That is foreign to His character. He is a God of creation. And one of the gifts He gave us was the perfect job. He also gave us a perfect companion. How many of you have ever been alone on Christmas or Thanksgiving or any of our holidays? It's tough. I've spent some Christmases. I remember a few Thanksgivings and a few Christmases. I had a buddy of mine that felt bad for me, and I was divorced, had 2 little kids, and didn't have anywhere to go. And they invited me over because they thought, well, he's probably lonely, needs to be around some friends. And it meant a lot to me. It helped me out. But it's tough being alone sometimes, especially around the holidays. There's a lot of people out there that are lonely this holiday. But God gave us as a gift companionship. And in Adam's case, he had the perfect woman. Picked out for him already. Made from him. So Adam couldn't complain. If he was mad at her, he was mad at himself. If you think about it. Because she was part of him or taken from him. And God to this day gives us companionship. He gives us, we were built and we were meant to have companionship. That's one of the gifts that He gives to us. He couldn't leave us alone. We could be monks or nuns our whole lives, or whatever the Adventist equivalent is. But yet one of the gifts He gives us is companionship. And I'm thankful for that, because honestly, if it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't be a whole person. The challenges, the companionship, the uplifting of the spirit, right? All those things companionship brings. And it was a gift to us. And even in this terrible world that we live in, where divorce is rampant, even in our church, and I'm not talking about church and Christians in general, I'm talking about the Adventist church, it's rampant. We still are able to have a God-filled marriage. We're still able to share it with somebody. Because God still ordained it and God still blesses it. And even in a sinful world we live in, we can still have it. We can still partake in it, thankfully. He built marriage to be resilient like He did our body. There's a lot of marriages that should have ended. And they didn't, because God intervened and they allowed God to heal that marriage. One of the other things He gave us, the first gifts, was a perfect rest. We talk about relationship. And I say this all the time, and you guys have heard my messages on the Sabbath. But Adam and Eve were created on the 6th day, sometime during the 6th day. Which means the very first time they closed their eyes and woke up as husband and wife was on the Sabbath. In other words, Friday evening came, they lay together, and you can infer what you want, because God ordained it. Going into the Sabbath, they opened their eyes as man and wife. And the first day that they spent on this earth was on the Sabbath. But they didn't spend it with just each other. They spent it with who? The Lord. Sabbath was always meant to be a gift to us. It was a gift to us to have a relationship with God. That He built this bubble of time, saying, I'm going to protect this day, regardless of what's going on in the world. I'm going to have this day perpetually for you and me to come together. That you stop your work, that you stop your worries, that you stop your rat race that you have on this earth. And that you come together and you can enjoy it with me. And the Sabbath's still a delight. Is it harder and harder to have Sabbath now with the world that we live in? The world we live in is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, I remember, growing up, and this is, some of you are older than I am, and you understand this, that our lives, especially in America, have gotten faster and faster and more busy and more busy and more busy. And now we try to multitask more, we try to do more with the age of information that we have. It's just too easy to get busy. It's hard for me to settle down for Sabbath. Because things are constantly, my friends get mad at me because sometimes I don't return text or emails. And I tell them, I said, you know how much stuff I'm bombarded with in a week? You know how many email accounts I have, business and personal? You know how many phone calls and text messages I get between all the things that I have going on? I said, sometimes I don't respond. It's because I'm busy. And part of that's sad, but you know what? God accounted for that. God knew what the earth would become, but He blessed the Sabbath and it's perpetual, and that's a gift to us. Now, friends, these were gifts that were given originally to Adam and Eve, but they're still our gifts. We still enjoy our planet. Again, as bad as we've treated it, it still provides us life. It still provides us water and sunshine and food. Our bodies, even our fallen nature and our fallen bodies, yeah, we have diseases. Yeah, we have shorter life expectancies. We're not immortal like we once were. But we can still live a long and happy life. God can still bless it. We may not have dominion over the earth anymore, but God does give us a field to work in. He gives us a mission. And I'm talking about our Christian mission, our gospel mission. I'm not talking about the secular work that we do. I'm talking about He has called us to work. And it's the most awesome of work. We're fishers of men and women. What a blessing. He gives us companionship. Now there are folks that are widow or widowers, and they're like my mother, she lost her husband, but she still has companionship. She still has friends. She still has family. She still has Jesus that steps in and helps her. God has not taken that away from us, even in our sinful world. And of course the Sabbath. We still have the Sabbath. Thank the Lord for the Sabbath. We kill ourselves. I wonder what I did all those years without it. I mean, now it's tough enough to keep it. But looking back, I think, how did I go 7 days a week in the world we live in without a break? A break for my mind and my spirit and my secular work, which never ends. I don't know if you know any IT guys, but I can tell you this, it's never ending. Our work never stops. I replaced one system, I got to work on the next one. And as soon as that one's done being replaced, then the next one comes up. And it's perpetual. It's this constant replacement cycle, constant upgrading, constant patching. That's what we do as IT guys. I work all sorts of hours. It's never ending. If they could work us 24 hours, they would. Because things have to run 24 hours. And I'm thankful for the rest. So the question is, does God know how to give good gifts? Yes. He is a giving God. He is not a destructive God. He's not a cheap God. He doesn't just half do it. He doesn't just give you a little bit. You know, I get aggravated when people say, don't spoil your kids. And I always ask, you mean like God does us? They either appreciate it or they don't. Right? Does God bless you a lot of times with things you don't deserve? Why do you think He does that? What does it say about God's character that He gives you things like this? That He loves us. He gives us things we don't deserve. He gives us things we don't appreciate. A lot of times He gives it to us hoping we'll learn to appreciate it, that we'll understand the motive behind it, which is to love us, which is to save us, which is so we'll have a relationship with Him. And you think, how could you possibly give any more than that? What better gift could you give than perfection? And what gift did He give us? When we had squandered all the things that He had given us, when we mistreated our planet, when we mistreat our bodies, and we have short lifespans because of the food that we eat and the things we put in our body, the drug, the drink, whatever. When we've taken His job, which is called to be His servant, and instead we've chased after secular things and cars and houses and fame and fortune. And the relationships that He's blessed us with, that He's gifted us with, a lot of times it's not good enough. There's always a prettier girl, or a more handsome guy, or a more rich guy. And we've treated marriage, the blessing of marriage, as if it's trivial, as if it's throwaway. And then we've treated His rest as if it's optional. And so what does He do with that? Does He take away His gifts? Does He say, forget you guys? Like I would my kids, if I got them something nice and they mistreated it like that, I'd say, you're never getting another gift from me. I'll spend it next year on the puppy. Those of you who know me know I'm serious about that, by the way. The puppy will get it before ungrateful kids. So what's He give us? He gives us an even greater gift. Jesus. That goes against everything that we're taught. That goes against the world that we live in. Why in the world would you give ungrateful people who have spoiled everything that you've given them? Every wonderful gift that you've given them, they have squandered and treated like they have. Why would you give them an even greater gift? If you would turn with me to Isaiah 9. Isaiah 9, starting with verse 6. You guys know this verse, hopefully. But I love it because it shows the lengths that God will go through to show us His love. You know, a lot of churches, they preach God's judgment. And granted, there is God's judgment. But that's not where He starts. He starts and ends with love. And judgment is only a consequence of us pretty much saying, we don't want your love. Isaiah 9. Starting with verse 6. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon His shoulder, and His name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of His government and peace there will be no end. God, in His response to the first gifts that He gave us that we squandered, and we effectively gave dominion to Satan, says, I'm going to give you the greatest gift I can give, which is me. I'm going to come here personally, and I'm going to redeem, and I'm going to ransom you. I love that, ransom you. I'm going to get you back. And I'm going to restore all the things that Adam and Eve lost. I'm going to restore it to you. But it's going to cost. It's going to cost. The first gifts God created out of His creativity. He spoke a word and it came into existence. He formed us from the dust and the ground. He gave us all those things. He created time for us as His creative powers. But this gift is different because it cost Him not His creative powers. It cost Him part of Himself. There's a reason that Christ will always bear the scars that He has. As a reminder, because of what it cost Him. And He wasn't done there, friends. He brought some gifts with Him. The first gift that He brought with Him was His Word. His Word. Psalm 119, 105 says, Your Word is a lamp to my feet and a light unto my path. I was going to tell you, anybody have a Bible I can use? Thank you, sister.
That's King James Version.
Everywhere you should go, especially in this world that we live in, you should take your weapon with you. People being robbed, people being cheated, people being, their cars taken at gunpoint. You should always have your weapon with you. Your weapon and your shield. God gave us this as a gift so we would understand who He is. We would understand the love that He has for us. We'd understand, I made a list of things that His Word contains. It's an instruction manual. If you want to know how to live righteously, it's here. If you want to know how to treat your kids or raise your kids, it's in here. If you want to know how to find Jesus when it seems that darkness is all around, it's in here. If you're sad or you're lonely or you feel like you're far apart from God, it's in here. His Word contains history of His people. It contains poetry. Some of the most beautiful words ever written, even secular people will admit it's in the Bible. It also contains prophecy. So we can be assured that God knew what was going to happen as it happens. But it also gives us hope. Hope. Because those gifts that we squandered sometimes, we don't think there's hope. Like I said, there's days that we wake up and our bodies are failing, our eyes are failing, our minds are failing. We have things going on in this world that scare us. The world's becoming increasingly more hostile to God. But yet we have hope. This is the gift that He gave us. That you shut off everything around you and you read His Word and your life will change. Your day will change. Your mood will change. This is one of the greatest gifts He's ever given us. But remember, Christ and His Word are the same. In the beginning, remember, was the Word, and the Word was God. This is God. This is Christ. So if you want to know who Christ is, you read this. The second gift that He brought with us, or with Him, was His peace. Sister read Philippians 4, 6-7. It says, Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. It's hard to have peace in this world. It's hard to see kapunas getting robbed and dragged to the ground because somebody wants a couple bucks out of her purse, sent to the hospital, or worse yet, dying. And we see these young brothers and sisters out here that are doing these things, committing these crimes over and over and over again, not understanding in their darkened minds what they're doing to these people. It's hard to have peace. But that's why it says the peace that passes all understanding. This is something the world does not understand. This is a gift given only to Christians. Only the believers who understand God. Is that we can have peace. Even if we're gathered up, dragged through the streets, and lit on fire, we can sing hymns. The world does not understand that. The world does not understand how we can be at such peace in the midst of such hatefulness. If you read the great controversy about the reformers who were literally dragged into the streets, whole families, and burned alive, and they were singing hymns. Sometimes I think I can't even have peace reading the news. I talked about this last week, right? If you want words of life, words of truth that uplift you and arm you for your day or arm you for your week, you read the Bible. If you want depression, disparity, and hatefulness, then read the news. Ungodly people talking about ungodly things in ungodly ways. If you want peace, start here. Know the Lord. This is His gift. He knew the world we live in. And He knew we would need His peace. Because we can look around us with all the things going on and still have joy in our hearts. The world does not understand that. But you know what? No better testimony than a Christian saying, it's going to be okay. God is still on the throne. The third gift that He brought with Him was healing. Healing. Matthew 4:23 says this, and Jesus went about all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing all kinds of sickness and all kinds of disease among the people. There were a lot of people that had no hope before Christ came. They were outcast. The lepers were literally outcast. They lost their jobs. They lost their ability to find salvation in the temple. They were completely put aside. They couldn't even live in their own home. There were colonies of lepers. And here Christ comes and says, your faith has made you well. If you ever want to know one of the reasons that the Pharisees hated Christ so much, it's because year after year they would pass these poor people in such desperate need of physical and spiritual healing, and they had no answer for it. They had no power because they themselves did not have it within them. They did not have the Spirit of God. And then Jesus all of a sudden comes and says, brothers, stand up and walk. And then they find fault in the man for carrying his mat. I always find that story funny. Because they're not glad that the Jewish brother got healed. They're not glad that he's restored, that he can return to the community. They're upset that he carried his mat. You know why? Because they were embarrassed. They knew they didn't have that power. They knew that God did not favor them in that way. And I think partly inside themselves they knew they were lost. Because here Jesus comes along. You got no health care insurance? I don't care. I don't need to see your insurance card. I don't need to know your billing information. I don't need to know your social security number or your home address or your telephone number because you're not going to get a bill. It's free. Because I love you. The gift of healing, friends. And how many of us have had that gift? And that's what we're claiming for Puni today is the gift of healing. Spiritual and physical healing. That is not possible. Even with our modern medicine, we can only do so much. Only God can do it. And how many times have we seen God answer prayers that the doctors had no idea what to do? They were baffled. I've had so many times where the doctor said there's nothing more we can do but make him comfortable. And their prayers go up and God says, I can do it. And the most important gift He gave us was salvation. He brought salvation with Him. Ephesians 2:8-9 says this, for by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God. Not of works, lest anyone should boast. The gift of God. It's not given as part of our, were you naughty or nice? Salvation was given freely. Has nothing to do with our works, thankfully. Because if it had to do with our works, none of us would find salvation. Now again, I'm going to ask you, does God know how to give good gifts? Is there anybody else that you know that can compare to what God can give you? No. No, He is a giver. He loves to give. Christ loves to give so much that He gave Himself. Right? He gave Himself. What better gift than to give yourself? And the fact is that when we think about this holiday season, and it is the season of giving, we think about what? What should we reflect on? The gifts we're getting? The presents under the tree? The gift cards and what we're going to spend it on? Or even the gifts we're going to buy for other people? There is no comparison to what we can give our kids or each other to what God has given us. Amen. and continues to give us. And fortunately, it's not merit-based. He loves you whether you're up or down or in between. If you've had a good day, a bad day, or even worse day, God still loves you the same. It does not change with your works. On the days that you don't speak words of life, on the days that you fail again and again and again, God still loves you the same. And He's willing to bless you regardless of the type of day you've had, regardless of the type of week you had, or month or year. That is who God is. But you have to understand, this is part of the bigger scope of His character. God is love. And His love manifests itself in Him desperately trying to show us how much He actually loves us. And why does He do that? What's the purpose of Him loving us? What's He trying to get us to do? To accept His love and love Him back. Because then we'll get the final gift. And what's the final gift? What's the biggest gift that God will ever give us? We will go home. We will be done with all this. His final gift will be saying to us, I've paid for your return trip. Pack your bags, look forward to going. That's why I believe at Christmas time we should focus more on His second coming than His first. Think about that one. I want to go home. I want to meet Him. I want to sit at the feet of the God that has given me all these things. And I want to thank Him for it. And I would encourage you to reflect on this holiday season. And to tell others about it. About the good things that God's done for us. And the gifts He continues to give to us. Because this is our example, right? Dear Heavenly Father, we want to thank You for the wonderful gift of Your Son, the wonderful gift of salvation. And we just want to thank You that You love us so much that regardless of our troubles and our stumbles and our falls and failures, that You continue to love us, continue to bless us, continue to show us how immensely loved we are. I just ask that You help us to recognize that. In Your name we pray. Amen.